will be well spent and not wasted. And too often we see retail brands, advertisers saying, okay, where my money goes. It works, but I don't know exactly how it works. So retail media can cover a part of this promise.
Great points, Chris. Thank you. So I think if we think about how data has evolved as... Is good? Okay. So if you think about how data has evolved, I think one of the biggest trends that retailers always had was investing in their own personalization efforts to understand the consumer pulse, right? Like, you think about how are we moving the product in terms of existing data that we have with our existing consumers. So now think about the media hat that the retailers can wear. Then how do you change the data in the perspective of the B2C relationships that we have already established can be leveraged for advertising understanding. So the goal of both the brands and the retailers is the same, like reaching the right consumer at the right time with the right message, right? So evolving the data to make sure that the granularity that the advertisers are looking for is available at the retailer's end is the challenge, right? That's the evolution of the data that you think about. The same data that I'm leveraging for my own marketing efforts is the data that advertisers are looking for to establish that customer relationship. So how are we curating that data to give the right insight at the granularity that they need? And also, what is the retailer's strength? What kind of customers is the retailer targeting is something retailers started paying attention very clearly, so that the advertisers are going to get the strength of consumer data that retailers have with the first party, especially because of the privacy changes. The mega platforms like Google's, like Meta, they cannot close the loop because the transaction data is not available, so that you have the right intent of the customer, they are shopping in the time, and they're also getting the transaction data at a SKU level granularity to close the loop. So that's the thought process. I think it's evolved when I think about the data for retailers, using the data for themselves versus leveraging this data for advertisers to invest. I feel that clarity has been, actually it came at a very faster speed than anybody expected, I think.
So the question is how the ecosystem has changed in relation to data, right? Just to confirm.
Yes.
So taking a couple of steps back in the industry, 8 years ago, I was at eBay. Retail data has always been extremely valuable. Back in the day, I think eBay did a data deal with a partner, and all of a sudden, the entire programmatic industry had access to eBay data through cookie syncing, and we had no idea who were monetizing our data in that front. So one of the biggest changes with privacy is that I think retailers now have a lot more control with the very valuable data that they have, and they can choose partners to work with and in a controlled manner make that available to advertisers. And I think then the value of that has significantly elevated. Like you pointed out, some of the walled gardens aren't fully able to close the loop, or that data might not be passed directly to them. It might be used in specific business models with specific partners. So I think you do have now pockets of highly valuable data that you can access as a brand, or as well as being able to properly monetize it as a publisher or get the right value for it. I think that is a big change that has happened over the years because of legislation and policy. But the world continues to change. So with the full deprecation of third-party cookies, I think that will become even more valuable in a world where you would apply either a clean room or work with a partner that can really enable your first-party data to be activated with the partners of choice, and the value will only further elevate, I think.
Great, thank you. Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points, and there are some trends that we'll see throughout this conversation.
Do you want me to respond to the question or go to the next one?
If you have anything else to add.
No, I think everything was said. I would just add that like data sharing and the relationship between brands and retailers always existed, long existed. You're now putting consumer data and the consumer at the middle of this relationship, which is a big game changer. So retail media, I think, is the first step. But I think when we look forward, while we talk about like retail data collaboration, And what you just said is like absolutely amazing. You're now not just giving media and capabilities to target retailers' data to the brand, but you're also in a position where, while some retailers would provide directly their data to the brand, and this will drastically change the relationship between brands and retailer. I think there is a lot of work going forward on how you adapt the organizations on the brand and retailer side, so how they work jointly to embrace not only the trade side, but also the media part and the data part into their relationship. But this is something that is coming for the next years, I think.
Great, thank you. So Lucia, you brought up the point that the landscape is changing. There's all of these new rules and regulations every day around data privacy that are popping up. Google is announcing the deprecation of the cookie whenever that may happen. So with all of these changes, and Stan, I'll let you answer this one first. How would you recommend that agencies, retailers, and publishers prepare accordingly for these, new policies that are coming up and new laws and regulations?
Well, did you ask me the question? Sorry, I jumped in.
Yes, jump in, no worries.
Well, but the deprecation of the third-party cookies have been announced and is being very much expected by the industry for a long time. With every delay, I think the industry has gone like, really? Come on, just pull the plug, let's move forward, because there are solutions that can replace a lot of the use cases. And I mean, a lot of people are a little bit skeptical or fearful of change and policy. You say policy, people like over-regulation, but what it does is breed innovation. So it has challenged the entire industry to do better, to be creative, and to create solutions that are fit for purpose. So I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of regulation, but I think it has a really good, strong place. How advertisers, agencies are preparing and should be preparing, I think the industry is in a good place. At least I can speak from a WP perspective. We are very good at building technology and building with our clients, co-creating with clients. And what I'm seeing is that advertisers, in its great majority, are very busy trying to understand or halfway through a transformation journey, which enables them to better leverage data assets that they may have and work with partners that will make use of that data in a privacy-first manner. So, and this is something that really, I don't think would have been encouraged had we continued in that third-party cookie world, because it was simple. DMP, whatever, DSP, just go targeting the users you've seen before. I think it has really challenged the industry to think creatively on how to properly engage the audiences that they have.
Great.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think agencies just need to get prepared to support their clients onto, well, first thing, identifying the best data sources out there in the market. And second thing, well, enabling them to potentially change the way they buy and they bid, which this is going to happen, changing from cookies to IDs or different types of contextual approaches. So that's going to be on the agency side. On the retailer side, I think they just need to work on their data asset to become like the most relevant partners for the brands that are out there. So that's a question of, well, technical question, infrastructure question, identity question, and consent for sure, with these regulations evolving. And I think on the publisher side, well, publishers need to get prepared on the disappearance of those third-party cookies and find out the different partners that they are going to need to be able to still sell their inventory. So I think that's the big trends for those three players in the market.
And if I can add something on that, it's more, and I think that's the main challenge of our industry, it's attribution, post-view attribution, post-click attribution. And what brings those regulations to the table, it's, I think, a major disruption, because you won't be able to do deterministic measurement as you were doing. As, let's say, deterministic measurement was brought by digital media because it was easy, thanks to cookie, etc., to track individuals, let's say, as a closed-loop solution. With the deprecation of cookies and also with privacy laws, etc., you will have less and less IDs, whatever the IDs is. So you will have to find new way of measurement. But there is new routes. And actually you can go back to panel modeling, which was done before, and still with panel modeling, you still have very good accuracy in terms of optimizing, etc., etc. So I think what the industry will have to adjust is to that, because we are too much linked to deterministic approach, and even retail media brings that promise with you, because we'll be able to leverage first-party data of the retailers. You may not be able to do 100% of them, because not 100% of your customers are going to your sites and apps, etc. So you will have to find a new way and to do, panel modeling. I think it's an extrapolating good way to do it.
Nice. I mean, great points, actually. And Stan was actually looking at me when he said retailers have to, so I'll answer to that question, actually. So, I mean, so there are two parts in your conversation, Stan, I want to latch onto, and I think, Lucia, you mentioned about the regulation in itself, how it is actually, it's actually a blessing in a disguise, because cookies were never perfect. And it was a persistent identifier that we are looking at to connect the data. So, I mean, does it need to be a completely persistent, anonymized identifier? That's what we need to think about, right? Like, how do we prepare for a cookieless world? It does not have to be a one-to-one change. We have to look at all of the use cases that you're doing with cookies have to be translated to something that is completely exactly the same. So from a retailer perspective, what I noticed is there have to be ID-based and non-ID-based solutions to translate addressability, similar to what Cookie was doing. So if you think about ID-based solutions, of course, think about partners who are going to be connecting that ID-based solution. Is it only single ID? Does not have to be. It can be multiple different IDs, because when you're buying media in the ecosystem, like you will know what kind of identifier has better quality. And this whole industry is just testing this, right? Like new ID solutions are coming up almost every day. Like there's a new ID solution. So and also, you will have to think about the use case and the objective that you're going towards, and then think whether I need the deterministic based identification, or think about, hey, can this be modeled? Or is it measurement that is aggregated or at a user level? But the bottom point being, cookies can be changed into, especially based on the use cases, regulation, how much do I have access to, what data do I have access to, and the quality of that. Do we want to go contextual? Like at this point, I don't have enough data signals, social is not sharing the right data with us, like what is the data point that is coming? So what retailers have to, and retail media networks are actually retailer side of the story and also publisher side of the story, right? We are trying to do inventory management on our side as well. So I think it's very important to know that it's not one size fits all. It's based on the use cases that we need to think about. What is it that we will have to do, and make sure that you test all, that right now is the time to test, because industry is figuring it out. So test all ID solutions, think about the scale that it is giving you, and think about all different kinds of measurement solutions that you bring to market, and also targeting solutions.
Great, thank you, all good points. So I'm being conscious of time, so switching up the order of the questions a little bit here, but I think what you just said plays nicely into this next question is, where do different data sets, so for instance, first-party retailer data, location-based data, second-party data, and maybe third-party data from data providers, where do all of these fit into different areas of the funnel, and what do you think is the best approach that you've seen? Chris, I feel like you might have something interesting to say here.
I think data is a commodity. Data, we have a lot of data coming from many sources. Obviously, then you have to apply regulation, etc., etc. So it's how you leverage data to make it relevant for you and relevant for your business. Then you may use, what we do is we think that for us every store is different from one to another, so we make things very local based, just to make sure that you are reaching out the right audiences to deliver them the right message and to engage them with whatever your goal is. Then, to go back to your point, and I think that's retail media and retail media networks brings also the complexity of handling many platforms. So when you're a brand and advertiser, you are still a bit lost amongst all these partners. So that's why also agencies are very important, to help them to handle that complexity and to make sure that they're leveraging the right data set. And when I mean the right data set, is a data set for themselves relevant for their business. That's why, going back to what just Sravanthi said, they have to test. They have to test to find the right data set and to find the right pattern for them, and then drive the outcomes they are looking for.
Great. Lucia, do you have anything to add from an agency perspective on that? And again, the question is, where do different data sets fit best in different areas of the funnel? So from more of a top funnel perspective to a lower funnel conversion perspective.
I mean, you can take that question two different paths, I would say. Are you talking about a specific campaign that for, say, advertiser A, they're going to spend 40% of their yearly budget on? Therefore, you really need to construct a strategy to make sure that you map your audience really granularly, first with what data you have within your organization, first-party data, how are you going to reach them, where are you going to find that audience? Is that audience overlapping with maybe some of the partners that you have working with you guys, for example, allow that to go further and reach that audience beyond the traditional kind of programmatic PMPs and so on. And then you have to really tailor how to reach your audience, and that's where different pockets of data, maybe second-party data, maybe publisher data, retail media data, will really allow you to really map the audience that you want to reach. On the flip side, and I would say the second strategy is how you create an always-on engine. Evolve from simply operating with a DMP to creating your CDP, to bringing together data that you have in your organization that historically within a cookie world was a lot less utilized, and use that to inform not just your buys but your measurement, and creates a loop to really tell you how you're engaging your audience across the board and how your performance is working. So it depends. Are you talking about a one-off or multiple drops of spend, or are you talking about an ongoing strategy on how you continue to engage your base?
Yeah, I would say the second instance you just mentioned, so the overall audience strategy.
Yeah, we are seeing a lot of advertisers making much broader investments into data solutions, which, again, historically the focus was DMPs and activating the cookies that they had within their organizations, or bringing in some of their CRM data into a cookie form within a DMP to activate their media buying through DSPs. The world is very rapidly migrating into a world of first-party data only. How do you construct not just CDPs, but data solutions that allows you to operate at scale with your data internally, as well as any data that you may have access to that might not be necessarily purchased only, but it could be, weather data or, health data that you can get from the NHS and so on, and bring it all together to inform an engine that then you can utilize to run your marketing. That I'm seeing happen a lot. I would say majority of the Group M clients are having that conversation or are somewhere in that journey. And I think that's fantastic because it elevates how sophisticated an advertiser can be.
Great.
And I'm trying not to say AI.
Stan, anything you want to add there, or on top of Chris or Lucia's points?
Yeah, very quick. I think retail data has been considered as a conversion data from the first day. While this is very close to sales, you have a way to measure, so that's what it was built for. But I think when you look at first-party brands not having first-party or cookies deprecating, I think basically you have to build your strategy, and you don't have to match the level of the funnel to a specific data asset. You can do reach, large-scale reach with retail data if you don't have any, for instance. So I think it's more a question of what are your objectives and what are the relevant data sources that you have at play that you can leverage.
Actually, just to add to that, very good point, Stan, and I think, Lucia, great points on understanding the objectives and connecting it, right? Like if you put a retailer's hat, then the data platforms that you're creating to get the data to brands for their objectives is very important. So Lucia spoke about DMPs and CDPs, how are we going to curate? But if we think about the actual data itself, what kind of data is useful? Originally, when we think about retail media network, it was all purchase. Hey, you're close to point of purchase, you're getting the measurement based on the purchase data, but there is like tons of data that is available in terms of browsing behavior as well. Like even if you're not a logged in customer, you're not thinking about, but there's a huge acquisition play when you think about customers that are coming, browsing, abandoning the cart, going towards retargeting solutions that I can bring back the customer. So the data itself, if you think about what is important, of course there is zero-party data is what they're calling it now. Zero-party, first party, second party. So, but it depends on, you know, what is your goal and objective. And if it's such a huge, intense understanding of how can I do customer acquisition, how can I do customer retention, how can I follow the journey? Each of that has different data sets. From an ingestion standpoint, what kind of platform do I want? How do I curate? The solutions are being provided that way. That's how we are thinking as retailers as well when we're going to brands. How are the agencies using it at a granularity that they want for the campaign objectives? So how do I provide that data? Then the data platform solutions will come into play.
If I may add just one thing, it's don't forget that there is also physical customer journey. Because today when we are speaking about retail media, it's very often e-retail media, and still 85% of the sales are still happening in physical stores. But I think today what we are, especially I think COVID has accelerated, is the hybridation of the consumer journey. So you go online, you go offline, and it's really important to handle that two situation and to handle the consumer journey. So to bring into your dashboard, whatever your DMP, CMP, we are very good at acronyms in this industry. Every year we have a new one. But to bring those two data sets, what's the online consumer journey and the offline consumer journey, just to make the relevant choices.
Great conversation, thank you. So just to finish, it's clear that retail media is not going away anytime soon. Data remains very important. There's so many different types of data sets that are, you know, at the fingertips of advertisers. So with that being said, as the retail media landscape grows, what do you think will be the next big trend over the next 12 months? And it could be something, you know, that will help overcome some of the challenges that you all just mentioned. What would you say, Chris?
Again, obviously retail media has many challenges. Reach is, for me, the biggest one, because when you have retail media network, you don't have 100% of the reach. But I would say what's coming is a battle between retail media networks and traditional media networks. And because the promise is to have more shoppable media, and at some point, they are fighting for the same dollars. And as an advertiser, a brand, you will try to put your money where you have the best ROI. So in the next 9 to 12 months, I see that battle coming between traditional media and retail media. And that will be the battle of attention. Lower funnel strategies are always the best strategies. Sometimes you have to do awareness and to have strategies for all along the funnel.
Actually, it's a good question. So if you think about the way that retail media is changing sorry, is it good? Can you guys hear me there? Okay, so when you think about retail media, the future of retail media, I think one of the biggest things that we need to think about is what are the headwinds and tailwinds that we are seeing, right? So one of the biggest challenges is there is a new retail media network that is evolving every other day. And also privacy changes are happening every other day too. Like, you know, how do you react to that? So one of the biggest things and trends that I think we have to watch out for is how is the retail media network standardization going to happen? Otherwise, the brands are going to be thinking about, is it worth investing in multiple different retail media networks? What is the unique value that is coming out of each retail media? That is very important. So I think the trend would be, what are the kind of solutions that both brands and retailers have to come together to understand the right value and the right standards to implement? Each of the networks would come and talk about measurement or talk about targeting in a completely different way. then it's going to be becoming very difficult for brands to execute on what they think is the most important thing, that's ROI that they get, and the right customers that they are trying to reach in each of the. Every customer is different, right? Walmart customer compared to Albertsons customer, compared to a Target customer. There is a specific customer that the brands are trying to target, and Albertsons might be able to provide the best in terms of localized. Like, we are a national brand with multiple local partners. So that is the niche that we can play in. So in that way, I think if you think about how can I standardize the value that I'm bringing in with respect to targeting or measurement, that could be with clean room solutions, like partnering with the brands in itself, looking at audience overlap, figuring out how are we taking addressability far enough to create the reach that Chris was talking about. So there are multiple things, but I think the biggest thing that ties all of this together is standardization. Like, how can we bring brands to a point where they understand what this means is very important, I feel.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think what you will see within, it's been already a commerce or retail media arms race, right, for the past few years. But from an agency perspective, that arms race is continuing. So you will see significant investments from the leadership across all holding groups. And I can speak for WPP. There is significant investment in divisions that are building solutions with partners, so not reinventing the wheel, but building solutions with partners to provide a more cohesive offering to cover the use cases of the brands the use case that the brands need at scale. So how to bring scalability to our world where there is a lot of innovation and there is different standards, different setups, different partners at play.
Yeah, I think standardization is clearly key. I think sophistication is going to be something else. While many retailers have started on the road, they're all at different points. Some of them are only powering managed campaign services. Other ones are already providing the data and self-service. We're going to see a lot of sophistication on the use cases that retailers are agreeing to provide the brands. I think when you look at Europe, there are still many retailers that are not ready or that are thinking about going to the retail media play. I think as cookie disappear and brands in Europe have less first-party data, we're going to see every player going to stand up its own retail media capability. So we might see also for smaller players some consolidation or partnerships between different types of retailers. Maybe not competitors, but retailers playing across different verticals. That might happen and launch their own retail media. I think then retail media is not going to be limited to retail only. Well, data collaboration overall is going to cross that border, and it's already happening in the travel and the banking industry, and that's something that we are going to see in the coming weeks.
Great, thank you all. Well, there's so much more that can be said about this fascinating industry, but unfortunately we are out of time. So I do want to thank everybody for being here today and open it up to questions if there's any from the audience. All right. So I think that's it. Yeah, this was a fascinating session, really great conversation. I just want to drive home that retail media is going to continue to grow, and Equativ is definitely going to continue to be a part of it. We are providing retailers with new monetization opportunities by offering a premium media ecosystem where brands can access retailers' data in a privacy-safe manner. So thank you all, and have a great Cannes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.